Hey guys, so we're going to use the same razor and blade as yesterday. This is the black metal Fatip. You can see it's got the open comb, so that means it's the Grande head. And we're going to be putting got that same feather blade in it. It's got about 10 uses now. It produced some tenderness in me yesterday. I think maybe that was the soap. And so I'm going to have that soap not in today's shave, but one that's more, well, technically I haven't tried this soap yet before, so maybe it's not a good test. But I'm pretty confident this is not going to cause a reaction. I think it was probably just a reaction of the soap. Yesterday was the Rosa from Nuavia. Today's soap is Haverford from Stirling. I haven't gotten a reaction from any Stirling soap. This is tobacco and vanilla. Tom Ford has a scent of similar name, and this is patterned after that. And they named it Haverford in case you've never heard of Parks and Recreation. It's a series, 6-7 seasons, something like that. That is over now, but there was a character on there that was the kind of guy who definitely wore this, and his last name was Haverford, Tom Haverford. And it's a hilarious series. And so I have this is a Stirling's sample size, which is a month's worth of soap for just a few dollars. So I think it's a great deal. So how do we load that up? I take a 1/4 teaspoon measure, and you don't need a 1/4 teaspoon. A little bit less than a 1/4 teaspoon will give me 5 passes, 4 passes, that sort of thing. This is just a little bit less than 4. As you can see, it is a brown soap. And it definitely smells exactly how it says: tobacco, vanilla. All right. Now, something else that's new here. I'm trying a new scent from Stirling today. And this is an Obsidian handle from DS Cosmetics. I bought on 11/11. Apparently it's a big sale day, kind of like Black Friday over in China or that area of the world. 11/11 is a big sale day. And so I found out about that kind of at the last minute. And this is another of the brushes that I bought. I was very happy with the Yaki silver tip that I got as well. Really enjoyed it. Now this is the Super Badger. And this is the Obsidian handle. Now this handle looks a little more ergonomic. Looks like I'll be happier with this handle. The other one was more of that traditional shape that has a small valley, and then it has 2 ridges, and then it's got some more bumps and stuff. Whereas this one's got this nice big valley here. And so I expect to be able to have a nice handhold while I'm mixing like that. And then when you're applying it, my typical hold is something like this. And of course that's usually never a problem. But here is something that concerned me as I was looking at this brush knot. You see any black fibers that come all the way to the top? Yeah, there's a couple over here, and they're all over the brush, and they appear to be clipped. They don't come to a point. That will often mean that it is kind of pokey and stuff. So we'll see what happens there. Could they be like boar bristles that split and become comfortable? I have no idea. Here's another reminder. The term Super Badger, Silver Tip, Pure Badger, Best Badger, those are words of describing brush knots that are common to many makers, but it could mean different things to each maker. There's not an industry standard. Very important to know that. And so the Simpson is a UK, I believe, brush maker. I've had the privilege to be able to try out a Simpson brush now, thanks to a generous user out there. And they have Super Badgers. Also heard of Super Badgers from some other makers, and they are just short of the nice silver tips. And sometimes not as expensive, you know, that sort of thing. And so who knows how this is going to be. Let's try them out. But I'm not encouraged by an abundance of those black bristles that have been obviously clipped to shape. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe they're there just to provide a little bit of backbone. I don't know. So I wanted to show that to you dry. And now I'm going to, just like I did yesterday with yesterday's silver tip, before my first use, I just take a bar of soap and just do a quick lather and then swing it out, and then I do my normal routine with it. I'm going to take a break to do that. Yeah, so this Super Badger definitely doesn't have that color, that same bright color, because it's letting that dark part of the hair get a little closer to the tips. I definitely expect to see some shedding. Well, I'm not going to be surprised at all if there is some at all. I did feel a little bit of the backbone as I kind of did a palm lather with a bar soap. So now this guy is ready to go. As you can see, he's opened up a little bit. Another bristle, no big deal. So let's just see how he goes. I'm going to put him in the water prior to the shave, just like normal, and I use my tap water, which is hard. And let me get my face a little wet prior to the shave. Now the good news is I got such a good deal out of that Super Badger brush that even if I don't like the way it feels, I could yank the knot, throw it away, give it away, and still be happy, because I expect that the ergonomics of this handle are going to be pretty nice, and so that'll be worth the cost, because of I got such a good deal on the brush. So next year, go to aliexpress.com if you want and look for their deals on 11/11. I had no idea until this year that was a major shopping day over in the China area. Okay, so this is a messy soap because it's dark colored. Speaking of that, if you have a nice light colored brush that you really value the bright appearance of, you may not want to use it on dark soaps like this until you find out how it might or might not discolor a brush. Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. I think I'm going to like that scent. Okay, so we've turned some water on my face. So we've soaked the brush for a few minutes. We've also given it a quick break-in lather. Let's just see how it works. So yeah, here's this saddle right here that I'll be able to hold on to while I mix up the lather that I think is going to make this handle pretty ergonomic for me. And as you can see, the lather's not brown, but it is a light brown color, definitely darker than most lathers we have. I think 4 teaspoons of water is what I have often done with Stirling of this quantity. So I'm just gonna go ahead, grab some of that. We'll go ahead and put in 2 teaspoons for now. You know what? Let's put in 3. Stir slowly at first so we don't splash out that carefully calculated water. Now, as a reminder, and I've said this before, I compute the water and the soap that I use to be able to share with you objective figures, and that's also why I shake out the water from the brush, because there are guys out there who have never used a brush and soap before, and sometimes they find their way to my videos and they are having trouble with their lathers, and they just a lot of guys out there don't really give objective measurements. They don't really show how much water they're using to add to the soap to make the lather. They may show a certain load time that a person can calculate while watching the video, so that could be helpful. But in many cases, the water that's added is not known by the user, and so that's why I use that syringe. And I mean, that's why I report it to you. I'd probably use the syringe otherwise, just because I find it so easy to add. If I'm adding water to the tips of the brush during a shave, then I may want 7 or 8 drops. If I am adding water like right now during the lather building phase, then I may want a whole teaspoon at a time, and this syringe lets me do that nicely. And I can track it and let you guys know, so that a new person can take that amount of water and use it just as a ballpark, as a starting point to maybe improve their lathers. That's all. So just explaining a little bit. If you use the same soap all the time, then why not get a little bit of trickle of water going? And if you use a bowl, then you could put the bowl under there for a second, pull it out, and then mix, and then do it again later. And you can do that all the way up until your lather looks ready. Nothing wrong with it at all. I think that's a great way to do it. Well, this thing is whipping up the lather nicely. I like the backbone feel that I'm getting as I'm working the brush. It's not stiff, so that's pretty cool. It's an interesting color. It's just a non-standard color for this. You know, I'm a big Stirling fan. I have a lot of Stirling soaps, and I've never had one of this color yet. Well, I take that back. I'm pretty sure vanilla sandalwood. There is a dark one that I've done before, and it was a long time ago. Forgot all about that. Okay, let's go ahead and put a little bit more water. Yeah, that's interesting. I like how it's not super vanilla. It's not an in-your-face vanilla like some kind of scented candle or something like that. It's definitely got some, you know, muskiness with a tobacco flower type scent. As well. Let's go ahead and add that last little bit. So yeah, now we've got 4 teaspoons of water in there. I'm going to add just a little bit more, and I bet we'll be good to go. There is maybe an anise smell or something in that family that is kind of coming up to me. Haven't decided whether I like that or not. Let's take a look at the lather now. Bring it all down to the bottom of the bowl, lift up. That's kind of encouraging. I think I might want it just a little wetter though. So let's add another half teaspoon. Take it all the way up to 5 teaspoons now added to the lather. Obviously, if you use the same soap over and over, then you can shortcut it. Get used to how much soap you're putting in there, get a feel for it, and put in kind of most of the water right away, and then work it until it comes together. Gonna have plenty of lather for this shave, that's for sure. Nice long peaks when it drops. Pull it up like that. Nice long peaks that kind of collapse on themselves. I find that often that's kind of where I like to generally have my sterling lather. It's funny, it's kind of a pinkish brown. That's so funny. All right, get my face wet now. All right, start this up. Pretty comfy brush right away here. Definitely need more water. It is I can feel those strands. It is kind of a harder brush without those soft tips. Now I could spend some time and just see if maybe those tips will soften over time. But I don't know that I'm going to be interested in doing that. It is serviceable. I'm glad it was inexpensive. I think I might like this handle, so I may yank that. Yeah, I can feel those tips now when I reverse direction and stuff. There are just too many better Badger brushes, even the silver tip from Yaki. Now, if you want kind of some prickle, if you want to feel some tips in kind of a pokey way, then maybe this guy is good for you. I don't think this is representative of many Super Badgers. Like I said, it's a relative term, and somebody's Super Badger may or may not resemble somebody else's at all. All right. Now let's see how this feather does in this Grande head. Yeah, this is much nicer than yesterday so far. Got some tenderness on my neck. Interesting to see if any of that kind of resurfaces. Definitely focus on kind of a with the grain pass for the most part. I can't do a true with the grain on my neck because the grain goes sideways. And since my neck is concave, yeah, I still feel that from yesterday. Still got some of that soap on my fingernail. All right, so there's a pass down. Interesting. All right, let's load up for the second. Just kind of jabbing the brush down in, not going too deep with it, just to shove some of the lather in the knot. Now switch to the pass like this. All right. Now that tenderness, I'm still kind of catching some of it. I wonder how much of that is just kind of residual from the other day's shave. I have to pay really good attention to my directional strokes here on that area so I don't make anything worse. Maybe this razor for me doesn't really like the feather. Wouldn't that be interesting? I don't find this a particularly aggressive razor for the most part, but this feather is kind of making it feel like one. Kind of rubbing some of that lather on my skin as if it were some kind of healing lotion. A little quick rinse. Also using that cool winter water to help reduce inflammation and irritation. I'm glad I tried Haverford. I was very curious. I don't think it's one that I'm going to be interested in picking up. Get the water out of my goatee. And then switch to painting pretty quickly and be ready to go. I think tomorrow I need to use a really mild razor. Let this kind of tenderness heal. If it doesn't, I'll just skip a day. Feels pretty tender there, kind of razor rash. Interesting. Maybe because I've never had this problem with any other Grande. I've got a few of them. Even the Mark I, the first version, which was more aggressive, hasn't treated me this way. So could it be the feather? This particular feather blade, maybe? Who knows? Got a couple of weepers yesterday right here. They did not open up. I don't have any weepers at all, it seems. So that's 3 passes. And I'm happy with the shave. But I definitely feel roughly treated here in the neck area, more so than I can remember. So with the tenderness that was perhaps generated by this blade and razor combo, it was a bad time to bring in a pokey brush, as it turns out. A little bit less than a 1/4 teaspoon turns out to be pretty much the perfect Stirling amount for me. I think this lather was pretty much perfect. About 5 teaspoons of water, a little bit less than a 1/4 teaspoon of soap, and come at it with a lightly wet brush, and it worked really well for me. And I've got an extra pass or 2 to be margin in case I screw up a pass, and sometimes, I found that the lather is easier to generate when you're working with a little bit of margin. If you, for somehow able to figure out the weights and measures so that you get just exactly the right amount of lather, I think that lather's a little, it can come together just fine, but I don't think it's quite as good as if you have a little excess there to kind of play with and be around and all that. Somehow it just seems to work better. So not really a favorable impression of this brush. This lather's terrific. I mean, that's some good consistency right there. It's slick, feels good. There is that other scent. Is it a tobacco scent? A tobacco flower type scent. I just don't get it. Is it what happens when the vanilla mixes with that scent? But I'm gonna call it something that's kind of on the bitter side, like anise, like I said before. Black licorice. Now it's not super off-putting, but it's a little, to me, who knows? Now it's so funny. It's almost like vetiver, where if you get a taste for it, if you could use it for several times and be like, but then all of a sudden that scent just has some character, and you get to somehow like it, and it's not an easy like. It's just something switches, and all of a sudden something that was previously kind of bitter and strong or something, you know, just because something you look forward to, it becomes something you look forward to. And who knows? So that can definitely happen. I don't think it's going to happen with this one. So this Obsidian handle is going to go to good use. I'll probably yank that knot out. I don't think, with so many great brushes, I don't think I'm going to be interested in trying that guy out some more. I think I like the handle pretty well. Yank the knot and put something else in there that I like better. Well, let's get something healing on my face after that kind of rough treatment. So I brought out my Chatillon Luxe Gratiot League Square Post Shave Salve. Now this is his older version, a couple of years ago, and I think his newer version doesn't separate quite as much, and so it doesn't require this kind of stirring. I just grabbed a pair of tweezers. You can also use a toothpick or something like that, and it separates kind of like butter or sour cream, and you just have to just stir it back together and it's just fine. Now this is an interesting product because I like this Gratiot League Square scent. You take the product and the warmth of your skin will turn the butter looking thing kind of clear. It'll melt it and stuff, and then it's got nice goodies for your face. Some I think the instructions say to kind of melt it in your palm, but if it's in your palm, it's really hard to kind of spread on your face. So I just do this awkward motion with my fingertips. And as you can see, most of it's kind of disappeared. And so I can start putting it on my face, and it does just a really good job of hydration. I don't even know, it's been so long, I don't even know if he, still sells the salve. Didn't cost too much, and I don't use very much per shave, but this is one of the products that leaves my face just feeling really nurtured, hydrated. Yeah, maybe a little buttery, you know, a little greasy, but big deal. And then I use the excess to, you know, give my weird scaly elbows a little bit of treatment. All right. Oh, it's got a good scent. Nice warm. Oh, that's a good winter scent. It's rich. Almost, it's not food, but it almost feels like it should be food. It's just thick and rich and savory, you know. All right. Gratiot League Square. So in just a couple passes extra is how much quantity of lather we had. So maybe 4 or 5 passes of lather, a little bit less than a quarter teaspoon of soap, and 5 teaspoons of water. And I really pretty much liked that mixture, that ratio. Happy with that. And hopefully this little guy will help to ease the tenderness, roughness away. All right. Now, wouldn't that be interesting if this will be the first grande ever that, you know, treated me weird? So what can I do? What kind of variables can I change? Do I want to change all the variables? Probably not. It's probably not going to be informative. What could I do? I could pull the feather out of here. Tomorrow, shave with a similar setup, but with a different blade, one that just treats me a little better on a more average basis. And so that might be what I do. I feel good about the soap. I don't feel like the soap had anything irritating in it. Because my cheeks aren't having a problem at all. It's just my tender neck area. And so I'm leaning toward the aggression of the razor and blade. And it could also be residual tenderness from yesterday's shave. So again, switching to a mild razor and a mild blade might be a good idea. Or maybe trying this grande out again, but with a different blade. Who knows what I'll pick for tomorrow. So I've just about gone through all of my Stirling samples that I sent off for a month ago, something like that. And it's been enlightening. This was the batch that I bought some of the sheep, the mutton tallow scents, Glastonbury, Port-au-Prince, which I discovered that I loved, especially the Port-au-Prince, because the scent was tremendous, and that mutton tallow base, oh, it beats Stirling's beef base by a good margin, in my opinion. Then, of course, you've got the sheep, named ones that are sheep. Glastonbury and Port-au-Prince and Varennes are the 3 that have been made in the mutton tallow base that you might not know unless you looked up the mutton tag on Stirling's website. But sheep, electric sheep, Scots pine sheep are all 3. Mutton tallow, of course. Sheep being a neutral, a natural smell, not really an unscented. Scots pine being a nice pine scented, not like pine sol. I kind of enjoyed it. And then I haven't tried the electric sheep because it's so pungent. Citronella and things like eucalyptus, and it's very strong. Don't know. But those are the mutton tallow, and that's been part of this group. I also tried Piacenza recently, as well as the Haverford. I finally decided to order that one, and so today was this try. Now let's go back and smell the soap. Now that I have this Gratiot League Square, see if maybe that vanilla definitely seems like it could work with Gratiot League Square. It does actually seems like it works together. This is definitely milder with the GLS around me right now. It's behaving himself more. So interesting. I think these flavors, these scents would blend together reasonably well. How about that? All right, I'm gonna do some cleanup. So this is how this brush looks after it's been stropped on the towel. So funny that when I do this to it, it feels very soft. But it's when reversing direction that you start to feel the prickliness. Now, is the prickliness coming from those dark hairs I told you about that were kind of clipped? Probably. Can't say for sure. But it's interesting how it feels this way. It feels very nice. It has opened up nicely to a pretty big, relatively big knot. I'm pleased with the backbone that it had. It splayed easily. It wasn't so dense that the backbone got in the way. It had a nice flow through. It rinsed. It cleaned easily. Just that bit of prickle. So, set it on the shelf. See if over time I feel like trying it a few times to see if prickle goes away. If not, I might see if there's a brush knot that I feel like putting in this handle, because I think I kind of like the shape of the handle and the swirl and pattern and stuff here. It's kind of neat. And since I got it on a good deal, I don't really mind if I scrap this knot right here. Now, I might have to steam it out. I might even have to drill it out. I'm sure Yaki doesn't use silicone like I do when they affix their knots. I'm sure they use epoxy. So it might be a rough extraction. All right. We didn't lose too many hairs, just maybe 5 or so. But again, not a big deal at all. Until I use one about 50 times or so, I'm not really concerned about hairs coming out. Just a natural part of the process. Otherwise you're going to pay somebody to comb through the brush to try to get all those stray knots out. Nah, I'd rather just use the brush, pull them out when they come out and throw them in the trash instead of paying an extra 20 or 30 bucks, for my knot. All right, so continuing to be a question mark on this razor and blade combination. Very interesting. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of it. Everything looks good in terms of alignment and gap and things like that. So we will be interesting to revisit it once my neck is kind of healed up. So we'll do something that helps it heal, whether it's skip a day, whether it's a mild razor and a blade that usually never has a problem, or whether it's that one with a different blade. We'll do something like that to try to change things up. All right, I think that we're good. I've shared information with you, and man, I like that GLS, like Chatillon Luxe. Here's how that is spelled. Here's probably the biggest font. It's French because the guy's in St. Louis. Chatillon, the double L's make a Y sound. Chatillon, and then Lux, when basically you say it like Looks, Luxe, or almost like with a little bit of ooh sound instead of looks. Luxe. All right. Well, neat. Hope there's been something here that has been helpful for you. This is Sugar Daddy Shaves. Take care. Good night.